This is Reynolds Podcast, The Creative Mindset.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Creative Mindset, a podcast about what the future holds at the intersection of creativity, technology, work, and life. I am Rei Namoto, the founding partner of I&Co, a global innovation firm based in New York and Tokyo. Today's episode is part one of my conversation with PJ Caldas, a best-selling author originally from Brazil based in New York. He's been publishing books since around 2010 in his native country. His books are novels based on various types of mythology. His latest book, called The Girl from Wudang, is being published this fall. It's also his first book in English. Here's a brief description. From Emmy winner Brazilian best-selling author PJ Caldas comes a story about immortality, martial arts, and AI that will make you change the way you look at life, science, and the crazy times we are living in. My name is Tigress, and I am immortal. This is my story. The reason why I wanted to talk to PJ was because he's been actively experimenting with AI for creative activities such as writing and producing imagery. Recently, he's been using AI to produce his book cover, promotional videos, and other merchandise. I wanted to get the story and the insights behind his process. Before we get into a conversation, a side note about PJ and I. We also go back a long time to 2006 when we were creative partners at an agency in San Francisco. Subsequently, he started his own company, and we'll get more into that in the next episode. So here's part one. Let's get started.
We've been working in the same industry, and we've had a long time relationship. But today, I'm actually excited to interview you for the first time as PJ Caldas, author, and not just any author, but best-selling author, particularly in your home country in Brazil. Tell us a little bit about your upcoming book, The Girl from Wudang.
So this is a story that I've been working on for almost 10 years now. And I the different facets of my life are part of it. I have my job in advertising. I have my hobby that became a job, a second job in writing, but also I always kind of did martial arts as well. So one day two different stories started to happen in my head. One story was about Kung Fu. That's how I started in martial arts, and how Chinese martial arts is very inspired by animals and learning from animals. And I felt like, there's something very cool about how they're all individual animals, but there's nothing about the animals that operate in packs or in hives, or in large groups like ants and bees. And I'm always really fascinated by those groups. I want to write a story about that. I started to think about how it would be a Kung Fu style based on bees and ants. That was one part of my head, but I couldn't figure that out. There was another part of my head thinking about how machines and brains could connect. What happens if artificial intelligence starts to develop too fast, and how could we overcome that and balance that out? Because technology is and the AI brain, the AI brain can be considered the brain in one machine, or the combination of all the machines that operated that AI. So AI is more scalable than our brains. So in theory, it can be, eventually is going to get smarter than us. And the only way that we may have to outsmart these growing AI is if we found a way to scale our brains as well. So I started to do research for what kind of story could be there. And then I found this researcher that was doing, there was a guy that is at Google actually, and he's doing some research based on other researchers, and it's one of those academic things that grow very fast. But the thought was that what if we put a layer of fake neurons around your brain, right? And then put the same thing around someone else's brain, and then start to connect the outer the outside of your brain with the outside of my brain, and our brains start to operate as one. And we do some training, and we can, and feel like, oh, that's fascinating. That could be a way for brains for the human race to gain scalability.
So in the process of writing and publishing this book, and you've been fairly active, especially on your on Instagram and other places. You've been publishing, particularly like the artwork of the characters, and then the the trailers of the book. So, how much of that is an experimentation versus? I guess maybe there isn't a clear line between experiment and the real thing. Maybe because the experiment is the real thing. Yeah, but again, just for the sake of our listeners, tell us about the areas in which you are actively using AI to produce.
I had made a commitment to myself that I would use, because the book is partially about AI, that I was going to use AI on everything except for the book itself. For the writing, the book itself, the story itself is 100% mine, with a little asterisk that I can get into later. But all the promotion of the book, I was going to do as much as possible with AI, pushing the limits and seeing whatever is the last thing that AI is doing. I'm going to use it. I'm going to try to turn that into an experiment. So it's, from a personal standpoint, the promotion of the book becomes a lab for myself. Is a laboratory that allows me to understand the possibilities of telling stories with AI, right? So it started with the first. I did a lot of research to see if I could find anything, but apparently the first book trailer produced with generative AI was the thing that I did first, and I didn't do it by myself. I actually hired AI animators to work with me because it was the interface for these things too complicated for me to do. So I kind of worked with them and understood the process, and I worked with animators to get them done. And I'm starting to be a little bit more comfortable doing some of those things myself. But because I want to push the limits, I'm bringing specialists to work on it. But even like music, when I did the first trailer, there was no music generated in AI. So, and there were no tools completely doing it. Now there are some, like 2 months later, 3 months later, there are some tools, they're creating music from scratch based on a prompt. But at that point there wasn't, but I still talk to musicians, they're friends of mine, and say, hey, how about we try something? And they found this one app that would create a series of notes, that just a core melody that we could use, and they use AI to compose the core phrase of the music, and then they compose everything around that phrase. So as much as I can, I'm pushing the limit. So the next trailers, so on Monday, I'm shooting a new sequence, because one of the new developments is that there are incredible technologies right now that take video footage and turn that into animation. Is like the coolest thing that is happening right now. Most of those tools are still in alpha test, but I have access to them. So I'm shooting a few kung fu choreographies in China on a green screen. And I'm going to run that through an AI machine with an AI animator that is working with me in Europe. And then I'm going to do all the music here through AI here in the US. And I'm going to turn into a series of trailers. And I have like 5 or 6 lined up already. And it's going to look pretty cool. The tests that we have done, they look amazing. And it's not that we have planned, is that every time a technology evolves, it gives you new ideas of, oh, I can do that to distribute. So I'm trying to use the development of the technology as a way to generate new ideas to promote the book. But the most fascinating thing for me, and that was the big aha for my other parts of my life, for the advertising world and everything, is how I'm treating almost this as a prototype for a bigger idea that I think is that this is opening space for smaller players to compete against bigger players. So in my delusional mind, I'm like, if I think about this, what if I could promote this book as if I were promoting the next Star Wars? So how can I just create that level of excitement? It doesn't need to be with the same level with millions of people like AI, like Star Wars does. But if I could get a smaller group of people to create that level of anticipation, there's something big coming. How can I use AI to elevate the volume and the production value and the feeling that this is going to be big, so I can compete with big blockbuster Hollywood? And it seems to be happening. And when I see the reactions that the audience is having, it feels like, oh, this is a big deal. They're treating that as a big story. I mean, hopefully they're going to like the book as well. And that we're going to see that in October. But I think it's possible that through AI, we reach a revolution in terms of how we give big storytelling opportunities for smaller players in every industry.
So then you're using AI to come up with essentially art direction, right? Yeah. And then you're using that to apply that art direction to the green screen footage that of a martial artist that you've shot. And then you're then giving that to an animator to apply that art direction to the video that you've shot. Now, is the animator also using AI to essentially apply that to the footage automatically, or is he or are they doing a lot of manual labor to do that? Like what's the balance? Yeah.
Right. So this animator is basically studying the forefronts of these techniques and the possibilities to know how to make them look right. And he does that to me. There's a trick though, and not really a trick, but it's almost a realization that comes to it that is, I think, is important. That is a metaphor that kind of happened. I realized that as we were doing this, and it was an important aha for more. And I think it's going to help a lot of people that are trying to understand these new technologies. There's this. You have used Photoshop your entire life, right? So, Photoshop is a very reliable tool because if you know how to use it, you tell it what you want and it will do it, right? So think of Photoshop as a bicycle, right? It does what it needs to do. It runs faster than you can go. It can go faster than what you can go by yourself. It can do things that you can't do by yourself. But still, it's your legs are pedaling, and it does. But it will do everything you do. Doing that same work with AI is like going from a bicycle to a horse, right? That you have way more power between your legs, but the horse is going to make some decisions by itself. You have to learn to communicate with the beast to get the most, to be more in control. If you don't communicate with the beast, the amount of control that the beast will have is going to be higher than yours, right? If you don't know how to ride the horse, like I don't, the horse is going to do whatever he wants. I'm just there, like going with it. If you're really good on riding horses, and if you and the horse have a good relationship, you can the horse operates almost like a bike in terms of a tool, but there's an emotional connection, and the two of you work in tandem. I think the way I look at AI from a creative standpoint today is a horse that you operate in. That depending on your communication with it is going to feel more like a tool or more like a partnership. But if you don't, you're just mounting on the horse and letting the horse do the job, and it's mostly the job's work, not yours. But I'm using this process to try to develop a way and to understand how humans can collaborate with AI in a way that we have more control.
Are you using tools like ChatGPT to actually create the narrative of the trailer, or is it you and the animation technique that you keep going back and forth, and is it you thinking of the script for the trailer itself?
It's the script and the voiceover and everything is still me. I try to play with ChatGPT to get there. I didn't like the results, so the writing is still mine.
So why is that? So I guess you as a writer, you felt the limitation and you weren't quite satisfied with the quality of the story. If I'm interpreting what you're saying, so tell us a little bit about why not use ChatGPT to actually write the story of at least the trailer.
I think that from a creative standpoint, the sophistication, and this caught me by surprise. If I had to think about it, if someone had asked me 5 years ago, say, all right, creative tools are going to invade the creative process, and they're going to be visual tools and they're going to be writing tools. What do you think which one you think is going to reach a cool, kind of a sophisticated level first? I would say writing for sure, but it's actually the level of sophistication, the level of taste of generative AI on the visual is way higher than on writing.
A few weeks or even a couple of months ago, I noticed a blog post that you had written. And in it, you were talking about, you were asking, I believe, ChatGPT to come up or, help come up with a story, right? Or a portion of the story, whether it was for the book or something else. And you mentioned that you kept pushing it in order to make the storyline better. But then all of a sudden, the AI tool gave up. What were you trying to do? And what was it that made the AI give up?
It was a funny story because what happened was that I was testing it because I had committed so much of my attention to it. I got a little obsessed, let's say, with what all these generative AI possibilities and everything when ChatGPT was launched. For let me see if it can write or not. I mean, the book was already finished and done and fine, so I was playing with something else. So the challenge that I gave to myself is that can I make these ChatGPT write a short little story? And I started to poke ChatGPT to see if it would tell me what we would do if it became sentient. But it was the engineers behind that kind of worked really hard apparently to avoid these questions and just trying, no, it's not. I'm just a computer program and not that. So ChatGPT, help me tell a story about an AI just like you that became sentient and decided to run for Senate, and the human Senate, and became and won the election. And so, okay, I can do that. It started to tell the story. I like, yeah, keep going. Tell the story, keep going. About like the third or fourth time that I said keep going, the part of the story was that, and then the computer just left the was something about how the robots or that being left the computers to go somewhere else, and then it stopped. And I stopped there for like, holy shit, there are three possibilities here. One is that there was a ChatGPT sometimes got overloaded and it collapses and it stops. Maybe that's what happened. Option two is that maybe ChatGPT developed a very mean sense of humor and did that just to mess with my head. And option three was that it kept thinking about it and had the idea and started to enjoy the idea and just left. Minutes later, it came back and I couldn't retrieve that same conversation, but there were like 5 minutes that's like, okay, what is happening here? And it was okay. It was at the very least was a very ironic twist from the AI gods, a very funny joke that they play on me.
So I guess, for the time being in 2023, ChatGPT or these writing AI tools, if I understand you correctly, aren't good enough yet, at least for the standard of PJ Caldas, the writer, right? The professional published writer. It's not there yet. It sounds like it's actually within a fairly close future, it may be possible for AI to collaborate on a book that becomes a bestseller?
Right now, ChatGPT can write paragraphs that make sense, that are interesting enough, but it cannot tell a longer story. If you ask ChatGPT to write like J.K. Rowling, it can write a paragraph or a few paragraphs that you can swear that it came from a Harry Potter book. On this book in particular, I separated AI is being used as a partner for the promotion of the book, not for the book itself. So I wanted to create a symbol for my audience, for example. So I asked AI to draw a brain like a Chinese calligrapher would draw a brain, right? And then I turned that into a symbol that I created an entire store, a fashion collection that my readers could wear, right? So for the promotion of the book, I used AI. The book itself, the only AI I used was to correct grammar, stuff like that. But I can see in the future using AI for brainstorm, for plot points and things. And there's a story that I'm working on that I've been playing with AI to see if AI gives me any good ideas. But I use it the same way that I read other authors' books to get idea and inspiration. It's for inspiration, brainstorm, rather than actually doing the writing.
You became interested in AI before all this trendy topic of ChatGPT and Midjourney and DALL-E, and in the past, I feel like in the past 18 to 24 months or so. But you started doing research before that, correct?
Yeah, it was like almost 10 years ago.
It's interesting. 6 months ago, they were like, "Wow, those are amazing." But now you see somebody's post and it looks like, "Oh, this was created by AI," and it just becomes kind of the same. Yeah, art, paintings and drawings, these really beautiful artistic paintings and drawings, portraits and landscapes that are being created using Midjourney, Midjourney, DALL-E, other tools. 6 months ago, it was new and fresh and amazing. And 6 months later, like hundreds of my friends are doing these experiments on Midjourney and posting those images that look amazing, but like it's already getting tired,
Yeah, it's like I think it's the revenge of the human race, because the AI is so good at identifying patterns that it found the pattern, and now we can see the pattern back again, and it's like we're abandoning it. So what we call AI today is basically machine learning. That is a new kind of computing, right? So machine learning, instead of going through computing that follows instructions, is a computing that understands patterns and learns from those patterns, right? So you explain something, you give data, and it gets patterns out of it and gets to conclusions, and then starts to operate on it. But in a certain way, that's not very different from anything in art, right? The world creates a pattern and everyone starts to copy that, and it's like 2 or 3 artists create a style, then too many people start to use it, and it becomes so usual that it loses its value. So those 3 artists create something new, and then I think that the pattern, the way that art struggles with patterns, on its own patterns, it creates things that become popular, so it can benefit, it can make money, it can sell, but then eventually it loses value and you have to create something new. I think that AI is going to accelerate this.
If there was a 25-year-old writer, who's writing his first novel or first book, what advice would you have for them?
There are multiple ways of making it yours, but you have to make the effort. Just writing a prompt and doing it, you're just lazily asking AI to get something, to do something for you. And that's when you're going to get to that pattern. Then it doesn't feel fresh. It feels repetitive and tired already, right out of the gate. Don't try to write with it. Use it as a partner to bounce ideas from and to get some stuff, but just still own it and make it yours. Don't get lazy and let it write for you, I could tell that the AI was creating thing based on what I was asking, and I wanted it to be mine. And the process of doing it and playing and struggling, they finally found it. Okay, now I can see my own expression in here. It took a while, and it was very intentional, but they found it. So I think that once you look at AI and feel like, I'm going to take something mine out of this, you can get there, but it won't give you that unless you really work. So you can use AI to help you, give you the pattern, and then now that you have the pattern, you can mess with it. I use patterns. I use story structures all the time. Knowing what the audience expects is great for me as an author, because I know what they should be hope or waiting for. So then it's my decision to pick which ones which parts of the pattern I'm gonna follow, which parts of the pattern I'm gonna completely break to shake them up and get people confused, and which parts I'm going to make it look like I'm following, but I'm not. And I'm gonna trick them, because it's like a magician. You use their expectation against them, and you do that. And that's how you actually have great storytelling, is when you play with people's expectations. And knowing the patterns is not a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you blindly follow them. But if you decide which parts you're going to follow, which parts you're going to deny for shock, and which parts you're going to pretend that you're following but you're not, you have incredible stories.
This was part 1 of my conversation with PJ Caldas, an Emmy-winning and best-selling author, and about his upcoming book, The Girl from Wudang. PJ has been interested in and researching about AI over 10 years. There's a lot of talk recently about AI stealing people's jobs, specifically writers' jobs. So coming into this conversation, I thought that PJ would say that moving forward, tools like ChatGPT and other tools would easily steal writers' and creators' jobs. On the contrary, his points that he made were to prove that there's room for humans and human creativity. From this part of my conversation, there were 3 things that stood out. The first one was, today's AI is like a horse, but not a motorcycle yet. 2, storytelling is about playing with the audience's expectations and emotions. And 3, machines are good at generating ideas, but humans are better at judging them. The first one, today's AI is like a horse, but not a motorcycle. Those of you who may have played with things like ChatGPT or even other more advanced tools like Midjourney and DALL-E, you would know that every time you put a prompt into whatever the input box of that particular tool, the output that you get is somewhat unpredictable. And it's based on a sequence and the repeated times that you enter those prompts into that chat box, the output becomes a little bit more consistent and perhaps a little bit more predictable. And he compared that process to riding a horse, in that you have to have a certain amount of skill and certain amount of practice to be able to get the horse to react to your actions in a way that you want the horse to do. Motorcycle, on the other hand, because it's a piece of machinery, whether you press the pedal or you throttle, the speed at which you move forward, sometimes if you're not used to it, if you're not careful, you might put too much pressure on and the motorcycle might react in ways that you might not have expected. But because it is a piece of machinery, the output that you get is exactly based on the input that you give. So that's the difference between a horse, a living thing, versus a bike, a motorcycle, which is a machine. And the state of AI today is a little bit like that. And I thought his metaphor was something that can only come from a novelist, somebody who's used to writing and who's used to using metaphors to describe scenes and situations. Key takeaway number 2, storytelling is about playing with the audience's expectations and emotions. If you are giving a piece of information to whatever audience, you're supposed to be providing facts, and you structure your narrative in a way that is easy to understand. Whereas when you are creating a story, you have to think about the rhythm of the points that you are trying to make, and based on the sequence, you play with how the audience expects the outcome and how the audience feels about the pieces of information that you are giving to them. And the more skilled storytellers, they know how to play with the expectation the audience might have and changes perspectives or even betrays that expectation in order to create a greater emotional reaction. Storytelling is about playing with the audience expectations and emotions. This point, I think I knew about this in the back of my mind, but having PJ crystallize it this way was a very useful reminder. Key takeaway number 3, machines are good at generating ideas, but humans are better at judging them. Before I spoke to PJ, I thought he was actively using generative AI to write the content of the novel that he's been working on. However, what he told us was that he tried doing that, but as a professional, as an experienced writer, he wasn't satisfied with the responses that he was getting from ChatGPT and other writing tools that he had used. So instead of using, he said that he used in small doses, small parts of generating ideas for the story, but in the end, the story itself, the writing itself for the book comes from him. However, what was interesting was that he's now actively using machines, AI, to generate the content for the promotional materials, but he's the one deciding which one is good and which ones to use. And for the time being, he believes that humans are better at judging those outputs from AI as opposed to AI deciding what's good and what's not good. That might change in the near future. The time will only tell. But for the time being, I think humans are relatively safe making the decision based on the outputs from machines. Part 2 of this conversation gets more into his day job as a founder and the creative chairman of his own company, Pereira and O'Dell, and the impact of AI he's seeing on his work. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've known PJ from 2005 or 2006. He's Brazilian, I'm Japanese. We come from 2 different corners of the world, quite literally, and we have very different personalities and temperament. He's, not to stereotype his Brazilian background, he's passionate, he's emotional, he's loud, and he's funny. I'm probably a little bit more reserved, a little quieter, but we were like the yin and yang. We've stayed friends for over 10 years now. As a personal friend for a long time, I don't really get to have a conversation about our day job that often anymore. It was really a great opportunity to talk to my friend PJ about his day job as well as his passion and what it is that he's doing to think about not only his own future, but his family, his company, and the future in general. So stay tuned. I'm Ray Namoto, and this is The Creative Mindset. See you next time.